Hey guys, this video is about angle basics. So we're going to review how to classify angles, how to measure angles, how to draw angles, and a few other things. You are going to need a protractor for this video, so if you do not have one, please take a minute to go grab one, and let's get started. First thing I want to do is see how much you guys remember about angles. So take a minute to copy down this chart into your notebook and see how much you remember about each of these vocabulary words. If you forgot anything, don't worry about it. When you're done testing yourself, hit play, and all of the definitions and pictures will be there for you. Here's the information that you want to know regarding the angle basics. So classifying angles and being able to identify complementary and supplementary angles is going to be important, especially when we get to the algebra problems. Okay? So I'm going to give you 4 examples in a moment, and I want you to classify each angle. That means describe it according to its angle measure. So right, acute, obtuse, or straight. Complementary and supplementary only applies if you're talking about 2 angles and their sum. Okay, so here's your 4 examples. We've got an 84-degree angle, 131 degrees, this angle that doesn't have a measure, this angle that also doesn't have a measure but has a special symbol. I want you to classify each angle, then resume the video to see if you got them right. How'd you do? Hopefully you remembered each of these classifications for your angles, as this is a little bit of a review. Now we're going to review how to use a protractor to measure and draw an angle. In order to measure an angle using a protractor, we need to know how to line it up correctly. So here's 4 diagrams. I'm going to go through each one and measure it with you. You'll notice that some of them are on the left-hand side or the right-hand side of the protractor, so that's something to keep in mind also. And I've highlighted my angles to see them a little bit easier. You may want to do that too. So the first thing we want to do is line up our protractor so that this center of our protractor right here, there's a little dot, lines up with the vertex of the angle. So we want to label that as our vertex. That's where we put the center of the protractor. Okay, now there's a lot of ways you can line up the center of this protractor, right? So the way that you align it with the angle is by looking at this, the 0 mark on our protractor. So there's one over here. There's also a 0 mark over here. Some protractors, the 0 mark is the edge, but the one I'm using right now, the 0 mark is not at the edge, and you can tell by looking at where the little tick marks begin for measuring the angles, right? So I'm going to go ahead and line up the center of my protractor on the vertex, and then keeping in mind that the 0 mark should be aligned with the 0 mark on my diagram, or with the side of the angle. And then I'm going to simply read my angle starting, because we're starting at 0, we're not starting at 180. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, and it goes to about right here, which would be 115 degrees. So this angle is 115 degrees. You can always check by asking yourself, does that make sense? 115 degrees is obtuse. Looking at this angle, it's clearly obtuse, so that would make sense. If you got an acute angle measurement, you didn't measure it correctly. All right, second one. Just by looking at it, I know that this is acute, so my answer should be less than 90. I'm going to align my protractor at the vertex, the center of my protractor at the vertex, and make sure that this 0 line is lined up nicely with the side of my angle that I'm starting to measure at. Starting at 0, now I'm reading the outside numbers. So 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, I would say 73 degrees, which makes sense because it's acute. Okay, go ahead and see if you can measure the last 2 angles on your own using your protractor, and then resume the video to see if you measured them accurately. here's what I got when I measured those last two angles. So there's two really important things you want to keep in mind when you're using your protractor. The first one we talked about already and we labeled up here. Align the center point of our protractor with the vertex of the angle. The second thing we want to make sure is that we align the 0 mark on our protractors, whoops, with 0 degrees, right, or the side of our angle. And we want to always start measuring from 0. Okay, there's a few more examples in this packet, and I think that you guys can handle measuring these angles on your own, but we have talked about how we would name an angle using 3 letters. So up until this point, you guys have probably learned how to name an angle according to just looking at the angle itself. So this would be angle A, B, C, D, etc. That's fine for individual angles such as this, but later on we're going to get into diagrams that have multiple angles that are connected at the same vertex. So it's really important that you name an angle using 3 letters so we can narrow down which part of that angle we want to talk about. So when naming an angle using 3 letters, the vertex of the angle is always the middle letter. So if I wanted to name this, I could name it angle BAC or angle CAB as long as A is in the middle. And the way that looks when you write it down is like this. Angle symbol and then capital letters BAC or angle symbol, capital letters CAB. Again, as long as the vertex is in the middle, the other 2 letters don't really matter. So go ahead and complete the rest of this worksheet. You can measure each angle to the nearest whole degree and then name the angle using 3 letters. Check your answers to see how you did, and if you're having trouble measuring angles, make sure you come and see me to set up an appointment. Drawing angles is also a process that we want to be familiar with. So this says angle A equals 35 degrees. So the very first step you need to do is plot your vertex anywhere on this sheet of paper. So I'm going to do it right here. Okay, and then you want to create one side to begin measuring from. It does not matter where you draw that ray. Now we're going to measure from that side 35 degrees in order to figure out where our other ray has to be located. So notice how I lined my protractor up just like we did before when we were measuring the angles that were given. The center point at my vertex, the 0 mark lined up with the side, and I'm measuring 35 degrees from 0. Mark my little point, and then I can connect my vertex to that point, and I have a 35-degree angle. So now you know how to draw an angle. You can go ahead and complete the rest of this worksheet on your own. What I'd like to do now is put some closing notes into our notebook. In case you didn't catch it when I said it, the definition of an angle is 2 rays with the same initial point. And we already know what an angle looks like, but to just show you the 2 individual rays, that would be ray BA and ray BC. They meet together at point B, which would be the vertex of our angle. So I'm going to continue with this example. So the vertex is the point that initial point that both the rays share, naming an angle. The most important thing was that the vertex is in the middle of the name. And then, of course, our protractor activities, you can go ahead and keep that packet in your notebook, or if you would rather, you can copy down some notes into your notebook here. I hope this video was helpful to just review some basic things about angles, like the definition, what they look like, how to name them, how to draw them, and how to measure them.